In the early 2020s, Qatar Airways and Airbus would lock horns in one of the largest disputes the industry has seen in decades. The Doha-based carrier complaining of surface defect issues with its A350 fleet and escalating its frustrations with the grounding of over 20 units from the program. With the wide-body plane parked, deliveries would be suspended. Airbus would cancel aircraft orders that the airline had made. Legal action would ensue, and this story would occupy headlines for years. But what truly happened? How did the groundings develop? Why was legal action taken? And how did the dispute end? Qatar Airways' long-standing dispute with the A350 began towards the back end of 2020 during the height of the global pandemic. The Doha-based carrier identified cracks in the paint of its newly delivered A350 product, something the business firmly believed should not have been happening with newly delivered aircraft. With already over 50 units from the A350 family in service at the time of the dispute commencing, the airline's commitment to the program was relatively strong, and the frustrations had the possibility of blowing into something even more significant. As the months progressed, more and more of the units in the family began being grounded by Qatar Airways in response to the concerns. In August 2021, the company said the Qatar Civil Aviation Authority had ordered the grounding of at least 13 A350s. This figure would only grow in due course, with, like I touched on at the beginning of the video, at a peak over 20 in the program parked. With the grounding, the airline's CEO Akbar Al-Baker at the time said in a statement that he hoped Airbus would treat the matter with the proper attention it required, expecting that Airbus would establish the root cause and permanently correct the underlying condition to satisfy not just itself but also its regulator who was overseeing this. While the groundings were taking shape, the airline also said it had paused the delivery of future aircraft from the program until the issue could be sorted, leaving it short on available capacity to serve its international network. As a result, the airline reactivated A330s and was looking for other solutions to restore capacity and mitigate the lost capacity resulting from those A350 groundings. In the end, Qatar would go one step further with the reactivation of the A380 fleet, considered to be a last resort, given the consensus within the business that this was a money-hungry plane that was a mistake and in an ideal world would not have been reactivated. By the end of 2021, in December, with seemingly no light at the end of the tunnel in the long-standing saga between the two companies, legal proceedings began to take place. Airbus confirming that it would take legal advice over the ongoing surface damage to the 350 jets, which, as the manufacturer said, was damaging the wide-body's reputation across the industry. The decision by the plane maker followed the European Aviation Safety Agency, a key governing regulator, confirming that surface defects had no impact on the airworthiness of the 350 fleet. Qatar Airways, however, continued with the grounding of its A350 fleet and vocal outrage over the safety and state of the jet, according to executives at Airbus, with no other choice but to move ahead with a thorough legal response to basically defend itself. 2 weeks later, not to the surprise of really anyone, Qatar Airways would launch its own legal proceedings against Airbus in the Technology and Construction Division of the High Court in London. The Doha-based carrier said that it had failed to reach a constructive solution with Airbus in a bid to address the surface degradation condition, which they said was impacting the A350 aircraft delivered by the plane maker. At the time of this, 21 of the airline's A350 aircraft remained grounded due to the condition, and the airline was fighting back in a bid to ensure that its legitimate concerns were addressed and were not continuously pushed to the side, like the business felt was taking place. Qatar Airways saying that it believed Airbus, and I quote, must undertake a thorough investigation of this condition to establish its full root cause conclusively. Additionally saying, without a proper understanding of the root cause of the condition causing the groundings, they as a business were not able to establish whether a proposed repair solution would actually be able to rectify the underlying condition. With Qatar Airways seeking more than $600 million USD in compensation over the service flaws following a revealing of a court document, the staggering situation just escalated further. Qatar Airways saying that because of the feud it was having, there was a loss of around 4 million for every single day the A350 jets remained on the ground. Additionally, by the first month of 2022, the carrier was requesting that Airbus deliver no more aircraft until the design defect had been fixed, and Qatar Airways could move forward with the assurances that its planes would be fully fit for service. And rather than just suggesting this, it put this forward to the judge as a firm order to be implemented by the manufacturer. However, while the ongoing dispute up until the first month of 2022 had seemed somewhat severe, the levels of the disagreements were about to be taken to a whole new level. Airbus, by the third week of 2022, confirmed it would move ahead with the cancellation of an aircraft order held by Qatar Airways for 50 of the A321neo family plane. Airbus deciding to move ahead solely because of the ongoing dispute with the 350 aircraft and what was its dwindling relationship with Qatar Airways, and a bid to place these delivery slots to airlines that were actually willing to support them as a business, and also to companies that would take on the aircraft rather than refuse them. The cancellation, which is driven by the plane maker, is rare. In most cases, airlines will be the one to cancel aircraft orders. This can be for a host of reasons, but for the manufacturer cancelling orders due to a dispute, it doesn't often happen. The order cancellation was really a snowballing of the ongoing 350 dispute and escalated the situation tenfold. Then, just a matter of weeks later, further orders for the A350-1000 were revoked. After more than 18 months of tensions, which, like I said, escalated to pretty dramatic levels and put at threat the airline's relationship with the plane maker possibly forever, a resolution was reached. Labelled as an amicable and mutually agreeable settlement, the settlements specify that on both parties there was not an admission of liability, and that was for either once more. So neither party was taking the blame for any of it. Instead, the settlement would allow Qatar and Airbus to move forward and work together in the future as partners, even after the Gulf carrier had spent well over a year entangled with the manufacturer in the dispute. 1 year later, Qatar Airways saw its final A350-900, which had been grounded for 2.5 years, return to service. The jet, registered as A7-ALF, represented an important milestone in the return to service of the wide-body program. Additionally, Airbus confirmed it would reinstate the orders for the A321neo, with 50 of these to be returned to the Doha-based carrier, and deliveries recommencing for that wide-body program too. The reactivation of the A321neo order also occurred, but not without a blemish in the overall delivery plans, with a little bit of a setback, the deliveries being pushed to 2026, which was 3 years later than what was first expected because of those initial cancellations and the delivery slots being snapped up. Let me know your thoughts on this saga down below in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. Take care. Do be safe.